Hey, welcome to the CPCU 530 video series, video 2, where we are breaking down the most difficult part of the CPCU 530 exam. And as I mentioned, this is part 2 of the 4-part video series presented by AssociatePI. We are an independent organization not affiliated with the institutes or the CPCU. My name's Jake. I'm a CPCU myself. I passed this exam, and I'm here to help you pass your CPCU 530 exam. If you want to check out the other videos in the 4-part series, you can go to AssociatePI.com/videos. So there's a lot of content to cover, so we're going to get right into it and try and get through this as quickly as possible. The CPCU 530 is the third hardest exam after the CPCU 540 and CPCU 500. This is the third most failed exam. As of right now, the pass rate for the most recent testing window that just passed, as of recording this, the pass rate is 74%. So that means 1 out of every 4 students that take this exam will fail. If you want to see the updated pass rates, you can go to AssociatePI.com/CPCU pass rates, and we update them there each time the pass rates are posted. All right, so why is the CPCU 530 so difficult? Well, it's because you are not a lawyer, or you're probably not if you are pursuing the CPCU 530 exam. And I'm not a lawyer. That's why this exam gave me so much trouble. And there is a ton of legal concepts on this exam. Lots of definitions I have to memorize, lots of terms and concepts that I had never seen in my entire life. In fact, there's over 600 definitions on this exam. We counted them. We went through our course that we wrote and counted all of them. And there's over 600 that you need to be familiar with. Not all are that important, but there is a lot of them. And they're not easy. There's hundreds of them, and each concept has its own minute details and little differences, and it's tough. I mean, the legal environment there's a whole field around it, so there's a lot going on there. So it's a difficult exam, lots of definitions, lots of concepts. So you have to be ready for that. The most difficult part, as I just mentioned, is memorizing the definitions. Over 600, each statute, definition, and concept you should be familiar with. All 600 you have to be somewhat familiar with. You don't have to necessarily memorize them word for word, but you need to know them so you can see the definition and understand, and then pick out of the 4 multiple choice options on the exam. You can pick the correct one. So there's a ton to memorize. I highly recommend you first memorize the definition. Just get like a basic concept, basic understanding of each term, and then go back and memorize the minor details of each, because there's a lot of them. This exam will try and trick you, and it'll quiz you on those minor details. So you want to make sure you memorize that as well. And as I mentioned, kind of beating this one to death, but over 600 definitions on this exam. You have to know them all. Not all are important. There's some that are more important than others. If you want to see the ones that are most important, we're going to go over it in another video. I think part 3 of this video series, we're going to go over that. But you can also go to AssociatePI.com/CPCU 530 to see our list of which ones are the most important. So here's our plan of action, how to approach these definitions, and how to make sure you memorize them all, and how to study appropriately so you can pass this exam. First of all, learn from my mistake, and don't do what I did. I didn't pay as much attention as I should have to the definitions, and when I got to the exam, almost every single question was based on some type of definition, some type of concept. So make sure you memorize the definitions. Essentially, the entire course is definitions, so it won't be difficult for you. If you're studying, you're going to be memorizing definitions. But here's what I recommend. First, read each chapter individually. Treat it like its own textbook. Really focus on each chapter one at a time, because each chapter is pretty different from one another. Each focuses on a different aspect of law and a different type of law, such as tort law, business law, insurance law. So they're all very different from each other. Contract law. So when you're reading each chapter, treat it like its own textbook and write down each definition from each chapter. Make a study guide. Write down every definition, and in your own words, your own, however you want to memorize it, write down the definition of each concept. After that, take note of the minor complexities and details of each definition. So there's going to be some minor details and stipulations about each definition and concept, because in the legal world, there's little differences in each statute and each law that you have to know, and that changes the entire law. So you have to take note of those, and the exam will test you on those. So first memorize the definition, then go back and take note of those minor details. Once you're done with that, once you have all the definitions written down, go back and compare each definition of each chapter to one another. So study the differences between each statute, each law, each concept, because there's going to be groups of them, and the CPCU 530 exam will try and trick you by mixing up concepts and definitions, and it'll mix up the definition of one term with another term to try and trick you and confuse you. So, and it'll confuse the minor complexities and details of each definition to try and trick you as well. So make sure you memorize all that. So compare them to one another so you can know how they differ from one another. Lastly, as one final study session, go back and study all the definitions as a whole. You should have a list of almost 600 definitions, or at least the ones that we say are important. So go and study your entire huge list, restudy, make sure you got them all down so that when you see that term on the exam, in your mind it clicks and you know what the term is. Here's a couple more tips how we recommend to study and pass. So as I just mentioned, first, fully read the course. You cannot pass this exam without fully reading the course. All of the terms, all the concepts are going to be in the course. You won't memorize these if you're just taking practice exams or trying to go in cold. You have to read the course to memorize all the terms and learn all the concepts. Step 2 is vitally important. Make a study guide. This is what I was just talking about in the last slide. Make notes, write down every definition, write down all the minor details so that you can go back and study your study guide later. It'll be a little cheat sheet so you can study that instead of referring back to the textbook and going through the 400 pages of the textbook, flipping through, trying to memorize definitions. Just make a study guide, have a cheat sheet so you can easily review. And lastly, you have to practice as much as possible. To practice questions, the questions on the exam are very difficult. They're worded a certain way. It's different than a college exam that you might have taken in the past or any high school exam that you've taken in the past. It was one of the most difficult exams I've ever taken in my life. So, especially because it's all concepts that I've never known before. So you have to know how to take these exams. So you have to take as many practice questions as you possibly can to prepare yourself for just the amount of content that's going to be on this exam and the type of questions that you're going to see. And that wraps it up for video number 2 of our 4-part video series. I highly recommend you download our free practice exam to get some of those practice questions that I was just talking about. They're going to be tough, they're going to be tricky, and we write them specifically to mimic that format so that you can prepare. So go download your free practice exam at AssociatePI.com/practice exam. And if you want more resources, you can check out AssociatePI.com/CPCU530, where we go over lots of other things in more detail, such as the exam difficulty in more details, the exam questions, exam definitions. So you can get all these free blogs over at AssociatePI.com/CPCU530. And as I mentioned, this is video number 2 of our 4-part series. You can get all the videos at AssociatePI.com/videos. And that's it. That's video number 2. I'll see you on the next video.